Arthur Schopenhauer was one of the most controversial philosophers of his time, and perhaps one of the most unapologetic when it came to sharing his views about women. While his words are often seen as harsh, even offensive, they carry a kind of rawness that forces us to confront uncomfortable questions about gender, relationships, and the illusions society builds. Whether you agree with him or not, his perspective challenges us to reflect on human nature in ways most people would rather avoid. In this video, we'll explore the truths Schopenhauer highlighted about women, truths that many shy away from discussing openly. He saw beyond the romanticized image of femininity and instead examined the motives, behaviors, and instincts that shape the dynamic between men and women. These insights may sting, but they also reveal aspects of reality that are often ignored in modern discussions. Before we dive in, let me ask you something. Do you believe society tells us the whole truth about relationships? Or do you think there are aspects deliberately left unspoken? Share your thoughts in the comments, because this question lies at the heart of Schopenhauer's critique. This isn't about demonizing women or glorifying men. It's about examining the raw, uncomfortable observations of one of history's most unfiltered thinkers. And in doing so, we may uncover insights not only about women, but also about human nature itself. Schopenhauer was unflinching in his claim that relationships between men and women were not based on equality or lofty ideals of love, but on power dynamics rooted in nature. In his view, women held a kind of hidden power over men, not through strength or intellect, but through desire. Men, he argued, often found themselves enslaved by attraction, while women used this to secure what they needed: protection, resources, and security. He suggested that women's role in relationships was less about romance and more about survival. Their instincts, he believed, were guided by the practical, to find stability through men and ensure the continuation of life through children. Men, on the other hand, often fell into the trap of idealizing women, attributing higher virtues to them that, according to Schopenhauer, didn't exist. In this imbalance, women gained leverage, while men often surrendered reason in the pursuit of affection. An example of this dynamic can be seen in how men historically competed for women's attention, whether through wealth, power, or status. Schopenhauer would argue that while men saw this as a pursuit of love or passion, the underlying reality was transactional. Women offered companionship and reproduction, while men provided security. This, to him, was the true foundation of relationships stripped of illusions. Of course, such a view is uncomfortable, especially in modern times where equality and partnership are emphasized. But Schopenhauer's harshness forces us to confront a deeper question. How much of our relationships are genuinely about love, and how much is still tied to practical needs and hidden power struggles? His perspective suggests that beneath the surface, dynamics of control, dependence, and influence remain as strong today as they were in his time. Ultimately, his claim was not that women were villains in these dynamics, but that nature itself set the stage. Women, acting according to survival instincts, and men blinded by desire, both play roles in this ongoing tension. Whether one agrees or not, his philosophy challenges us to look at relationships not just through the lens of romance, but through the realities of human motives and power. Schopenhauer often argued that one of the greatest illusions surrounding women is tied to beauty. To him, beauty was not some eternal or noble quality, but rather a fleeting trick of nature designed for one purpose: reproduction. He believed that men become enchanted by women's appearance, only to later realize that what seemed like lasting charm is temporary, and in his words, deceiving. This view, while severe, forces us to question whether society's obsession with beauty is built on something meaningful or on something destined to fade. From his perspective, the admiration men have for beauty blinds them to deeper realities. A young woman's attractiveness, he argued, is powerful not because of her character, but because nature itself uses beauty as a lure to ensure survival of the species. In other words, what men often see as love or desire is, in Schopenhauer's eyes, nothing more than biology disguising itself as romance. This cynical interpretation strips away the romantic ideals we usually associate with relationships and replaces them with a cold evolutionary logic. An example of this can be seen in how societies across cultures and centuries have elevated physical beauty above other qualities. Whether through art, literature, or even modern media, beauty has always been idolized. But as Schopenhauer pointed out, this idolization ignores the reality that beauty fades. What remains afterward often leaves people disillusioned, wondering why the passion they once felt has disappeared. His critique is that the illusion of beauty distracts men from more enduring qualities like wisdom, character, or virtue. This isn't to say that Schopenhauer dismissed women entirely. Rather, he criticized the way men deceive themselves through the power of attraction. In his view, it was less about condemning women and more about exposing the blindness of men who fall into nature's trap. By recognizing beauty as an illusion, Schopenhauer believed men could approach relationships with clearer eyes, free from the unrealistic expectations that often lead to disappointment. So while his words may sound harsh, the challenge he presents is simple. Are we willing to see beauty for what it truly is, something temporary and superficial? Or will we continue to treat it as the highest measure of value in women? Schopenhauer's philosophy took an especially sharp turn when he described women as beings who live almost entirely in the present moment. Unlike men, whom he believed were more capable of long-term vision, ambition, and abstract thought, he argued that women were bound by immediacy, the here and now. To him, women were not concerned with the grand future of humanity or lofty ideals, but with survival, security, and practical matters of the present. He saw this as both a limitation and a function of nature. Women, in his view, were designed to be caretakers of children and the household. Because of this, their instincts were tied to immediate needs: feeding, protecting, and nurturing, planning for distant goals, pursuing abstract philosophy, or building empires. These were, in Schopenhauer's eyes, roles belonging to men. The female mind, he claimed, was more pragmatic, rooted in the short-term realities of life. An example of this perspective can be seen in everyday decisions. Schopenhauer might argue that a woman choosing a partner often focuses on stability and security in the present, rather than abstract ideals or long-term vision. While a man might be drawn to ambition or future potential, a woman, he believed, evaluates based on what is tangible now: resources, protection, and emotional presence. Whether or not one agrees, this was his way of stripping away what he saw as romantic illusions about relationships. Of course, this viewpoint can feel extremely reductive and even insulting today. Modern psychology and lived experiences show that women are capable of the same long-term thinking, strategic planning, and visionary leadership as men. Yet Schopenhauer's critique wasn't about praising men and demeaning women. It was about exposing what he believed to be nature's functional design. Women oriented toward the present, men toward the future. The real question is whether this living in the present should be seen as a weakness or a strength. After all, being grounded in the here and now can make someone more practical, more resilient, and less likely to be consumed by abstract worries. Perhaps Schopenhauer's criticism also reveals an unintended truth, that what he saw as limitation might actually be a form of balance. Schopenhauer believed that at the core of female nature lay self-interest. He argued that women, more than men, were guided by instinctual drives tied to survival and security. For him, this wasn't a matter of morality, whether good or bad, but rather a reflection of nature's design. In his eyes, women's decisions were rarely based on lofty ideals like honor or truth, but on what would benefit them and their children most directly. He pointed to marriage as one of the clearest examples of this. While men might pursue passion, ideals, or even abstract notions of love, women, he claimed, approached it more pragmatically. The choice of a partner was often about resources, stability, and protection. To Schopenhauer, this wasn't manipulation, but simply nature at work. A woman's instinct ensuring that she and her offspring had the best chance of survival. This is why he often criticized men for projecting romantic illusions onto women. He argued that men blinded themselves, convincing themselves that women's choices were purely emotional or noble. But in reality, he claimed, women were simply acting in their own interest. For example, a woman choosing a wealthy but unremarkable man over a poor but passionate one would, in Schopenhauer's view, be proof of this instinct in action. To modern ears, this may sound cynical or even insulting, but Schopenhauer framed it as biological necessity rather than personal failing. He saw men as equally driven by self-interest, but in different ways, pursuing beauty, youth, and desire to satisfy their own instincts. Both sides, he argued, were less rational and more bound by nature than they cared to admit. The challenge, in his words, is this: are human relationships truly about selfless love, or are they, at their core, built on self-interest dressed up in prettier terms? Schopenhauer's harsh critique strips away the romance and forces us to see human connections in the raw light of survival and desire. For Schopenhauer, the relationship between men and women was not one of harmony, but of constant struggle for control. He believed that beneath the surface of romance and companionship lies a tug of war. Men seeking to dominate through desire and authority, while women subtly exert influence through need, manipulation, and survival instincts. To him, love itself was less about mutual affection and more about nature disguising this battle for power. He argued that men often underestimate how much control women actually have. While men may hold physical strength or social dominance, women, he said, wield influence through attraction and the demands of reproduction. This influence, though less visible, often bends men's will, leading them to sacrifice ambitions, wealth, and even reason for the sake of maintaining a relationship. In Schopenhauer's harsh words, men become slaves to instincts, while women quietly hold the leash. A simple example can be found in history. Kings, rulers, and powerful men often made catastrophic decisions under the sway of love or lust. Schopenhauer would point to such examples as proof that the struggle between men and women is not equal on the surface, but women's influence has always been significant, just exercised in quieter, subtler ways. This dynamic, he claimed, creates tension that never fully disappears. Men want freedom, women want security, men chase beauty, women demand resources. Each side negotiates and battles, often without realizing how deeply their instincts are driving the exchange. The illusion of harmony masks a deeper negotiation for control. Schopenhauer's challenge to us is blunt. Can love ever be free of this struggle, or is every relationship at its core a negotiation between competing needs and hidden power? His answer leaned toward the cynical, that control is always present and what we call love is simply nature's mask for this ongoing battle. Schopenhauer's views on women are undeniably harsh, but they force us to look at human relationships from a raw, unfiltered angle. To him, beauty was an illusion. Love was a disguise for instincts, and the bond between men and women was less about harmony and more about survival, self-interest, and control. Whether one agrees or not, his philosophy challenges us to question the narratives society builds around romance and gender. What makes his critique powerful is not that it gives us pleasant answers, but that it strips away illusions. Are relationships built on genuine love and equality, or are they instinctual negotiations we prefer not to admit? Even if we reject his conclusions, grappling with them helps us see ourselves more clearly. If you followed the discussion until now, leave the phrase "harsh truth" in the comments to let me know you stayed until the end. And more importantly, share your thoughts. Do you think Schopenhauer was brutally honest about human nature, or simply too cynical to see love as it really is?